In this lesson, we're going to talk about vocabulary. We're going to talk about learning vocabulary, output, and some takes on learning vocabulary through communication cards, vocabulary columns, and the gold list method. Learning a language is not a linear process. Fluency is fairly linear. We start with nothing, we go to words, we go to phrases, we go to sentences. They then become paragraphs and beyond. And our mastery of grammar tends to be fairly linear. And that's one of Krashen's theories that we'll talk about in another lesson. But learning vocabulary is not necessarily a linear process, and vocabulary is the building blocks of learning a new language. You need to have words and phrases to express yourself. Don't rely on studying categories of words. For example, language for the school, language for your house. Those are great categories to be used for review and enrichment, but not as your main method of learning new words. Maybe going online or studying with a crossword puzzle. You need to apply chunking. And what chunking is learning language in meaningful chunks to fulfill a task. For example, we'll use the very simple I need. I need can be used in many different contexts, at the store, at the market, at home. Learn that meaningful chunk to be able to communicate with people. You can always point to things. You can use circumlocution when you become more advanced, which means being able to describe something in other words. But being able to use those meaningful chunks is priceless. These are the things that are going to stick with you in a meaningful way, and those are the things that are going to move you forward in your fluency. Output. We learn languages from our input, and we assess ourselves with our output. Input is what we see and hear. I like to do twice as much input as I do output. Output is what we say and what we write. Input is where you're actually going to learn all of your vocabulary. When you're a very beginner, this could be from an app. This could be for Pimsleur Unit 1, a course I keep mentioning because it's excellent. This could be from watching a video. Assess yourself with your output. You get to see what you know by trying to express yourself. It's one of my very favorite things about languages. The test is already built in. And again, I'm going to bring up Pimsleur because it's such an excellent audio course, and it's where I always start when I am working on a new language. Pimsleur presents language in 30 lessons in one of their courses. They're audio, and you get your input from the dialogues, and they teach you words and phrases in each dialogue. You're then given prompts to provide output, where you test yourself to see what you've learned. As you become more advanced, your input and output can be from things like films or Yabla videos, which I love, podcasts, reading magazines. I can't stress how important it is to focus on input. You will learn grammar naturally. You'll learn chunks of vocabulary naturally, and all in context. You'll learn culture as well, which is a critical element to learning a language. And when you focus on input, you don't have the pressure of trying to communicate. You can really focus on your learning. And while I only do output half as much as input while I'm learning, I think this is a critical piece as well. Whenever I don't know something, I know what I need to go back and fill in. I get to fill in the gaps. And I think about my cycles, my input and my output. I'm always focusing on where I'm going to get my input and I'm always ensuring that I'm getting output. A great example of how to easily get input and output into your life at least once or twice a week is to start lessons with an italki tutor or any kind of native speaker. You're going to get input from the things that they say to you, and you're going to get to assimilate, integrate, and process all of what you've heard them say back to them, and there's your output. You've got to organize these cycles into your life to move forward in a language. You've got to have twice as much input and a place for your output. The more time you invest in this, the faster your results will come. I shared the task book with you, which is in no way exhausted, but I love to move through it and check that I can do the things in my task book. And when I can't do something, it gives me a reason and a context to go in and learn more meaningful chunks. When you're just getting started, you can pick a task. I really like using restaurant as a beginning task because it involves so much useful survival language that goes over into other contexts. For example, greetings, courtesy, food. They're super useful. When you're an absolute novice, you can use those beginning prompts or situations from your phrase book. And a super quick way to learn a set of vocabulary is to do something called vocabulary columns. You're going to write down about 10 to 15 words in your target language in a column on a piece of paper. You're then going to test yourself to see what you recognize, and then study what you didn't easily recognize. Then you're going to fold over the target language where you've only got your language in front of you, and you're going to test yourself and see what you remembered. And in the next column, write down the target language. You're then going to fold the paper over again after you've studied what you missed and filled in the blanks, and you're going to do it again. With both sides of a piece of paper and about 6 to 8 columns, you can easily learn a set of meaningful chunks of vocabulary. Communication cards. These are similar to task notebooks, but they're super easy to quiz yourself fast. I like to get a metal ring and some index cards. This is great for beginners. It's similar to flashcards, but you're totally focusing on vocabulary to complete a certain task. For example, a taxi ride home. You're going to practice giving your address or how to get to your house on one card. That's one task. You may have on another card returning something at a store or getting a mobile phone, whatever your task might be, and you're going to have all of the language that you need to complete that task. There's no grammatical explanations. Everything is just presented holistically and for a communicative context, just like it is in real life and in the task notebooks. And go through and practice them. And as you've mastered them, take them out of the ring and have somebody else test you. You can even use these communication cards, make them slightly bigger than flashcards, bigger index cards, to create dialogues. This is great for absolute beginners. Take those dialogues from your beginning textbook on Amazon or a phrase book or your own created phrase books and write down a dialogue for surviving at a restaurant or an emergency, for example. A method that I've learned about in the past year is called the gold list method. And it's similar to the vocabulary columns, but a lot less intense. And in fact, they even recommend sitting down in a comfortable place, having nice music on, and it's something that you do on a regular basis. You write down words in columns, knowing that you're going to easily recall about 30% of them, and you carry the ones that you don't over. I've given a link in the lecture text to an amazing person called Lydia Makova, who gives a great explanation of this on a couple of websites. If you want to check that out, I highly recommend it. Again, if you want to dig a little bit deeper and see some graphics, they're in the document attached to this lecture. We'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.